Hey everyone, my name is Josh and welcome back to your fourth stimulus check and news update. We have a lot of news to get into in today's video, but first, if you would like to receive 2 free stocks from Webull valued up to $2,300, make sure to claim them by clicking my link, which you will find in the description box below. Okay, so Congress was able to accomplish one thing yesterday, and that was to keep the government open through early December. After fears of a possible government shutdown, the House and Senate were both able to pass a short-term continuing resolution which keeps the government open through December 3rd. In addition to funding the government through the 3rd of December, it also included $28.6 billion for disaster relief, as well as $6.3 billion in funding for Afghan refugees. There were 3 other amendments in the CR deal as well, which included curbing assistance for certain Afghan refugees, prohibiting federal funds for vaccine mandates, and no member pay without a budget. All 3 of these amendments ended up failing to pass. So now that our politicians have kept the government open for at least a couple more months, Democrats will now have the next couple months to raise or suspend the debt ceiling. Since Republican leaders have maintained their stance on not raising the debt ceiling, they are now forcing Democrats in a corner where they'll need to do it by themselves. In order to do this, they'll need to pass it through a reconciliation package with only Democrat votes. Recently, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen issued a warning that if they weren't able to raise the debt ceiling by October 18th, the government would no longer be able to pay its bills. With that deadline fast approaching, Democrats will need to get moving quickly. Okay, so in some other news, even though moderate Democrats in the House were promised to vote by September 27th on the bipartisan infrastructure bill, if they pass the framework on the reconciliation package, House Speaker Pelosi ended up breaking her promise. Then, again last night, when Pelosi promised to vote on the bipartisan bill, once again, she broke her promise. No vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill, as Speaker Pelosi once again gives in to demands from the Progressive Caucus of her party. The Progressive Democrats, you see, are still saying that they will not vote in favor of the infrastructure package until they first get more commitments from Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. And yesterday, as Manchin has been saying for several weeks now, said that his top line number on the reconciliation package would be $1.5 trillion. And with Kyrsten Sinema being in a purple state and Joe Manchin being in a red state, it's hard seeing them going up too much more from that number. Here is Joe Manchin explaining that he's never been a liberal in any way, shape, or form.
I've never been a liberal in any way, shape, or the form. There's no one has ever thought I was. I've been governor, I've been state secretary of state, I've been state legislature, I've been a U.S. senator, and I have voted pretty consistently all my whole life. I don't fault any of them who believe that they're much more progressive and much more liberal. God bless them. And all they need to do is we have to elect more, I guess, for them to get theirs, elect more liberals.
And this is quite true. If progressive Democrats want more voters like, say, Pramila Jayapal, Cori Bush, and AOC, they should probably elect more of their type. But to do that in West Virginia, it's probably not going to end up happening. So to get Senators Manchin and Sinema on board with reconciliation, it looks like it's going to be the progressive Democrats that need to move down from their number, which also is probably not all that likely. So before the night ended and no votes were had, Nancy Pelosi released a Dear Colleagues letter, which stated, "The clock just struck 9 in the evening of a very productive and crucial day. Thanks to every House Democrat, we passed and sent to the President the continuing resolution to keep the government open to meet our responsibilities and the needs of the American people. It has been a day of progress in fulfilling the President's vision to build back better. Thanks to so many members and staff, the work is being done. Discussions continue with the House, Senate, and White House to reach a bicameral framework agreement to build back better through a reconciliation bill. Many thanks to members of our caucus for your participation and patience over the past few days. The bipartisan infrastructure bill has already had its rules passed and its debate has concluded. All this momentum brings us closer to shaping the reconciliation bill in a manner that will pass the House and Senate. Thank you all for your constant, informative, and occasionally humorous messages, and always for your leadership for the people." So unless anyone else has some type of translation for this letter, it really doesn't tell us all that much. Basically, as we all figured she would, Pelosi is continuing to stall a vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill until she knows she at least has the votes to pass it. And at this point, it's very obvious progressives aren't going to allow for it to pass, until they first get a stronger commitment on reconciliation. I think this also shows how far the Progressive Caucus and the Democratic Party have come. Not long ago, it was a disorganized party where types like Bernie Sanders were thought of as radicals. Now, Bernie Sanders is almost considered the leader of the Democratic Party, and he, more than Joe Biden even, seems to be controlling how things are going. Rather than Joe Biden urging Congress to at least get his first win out of the way by passing the bipartisan infrastructure deal, he's letting Congress take control. Sanders said himself, no infrastructure bill should pass without a $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. That is the agreement that was made, and that is the agreement that must be kept. Physical infrastructure is important, but the needs of working families and combating climate change is more important. This is the time for Joe Biden to step in and to be the moderate president he promised to be, and to get these progressives on board with the plan. The fact is, the bipartisan infrastructure package is quite popular among both parties, and he really needs to get at least one of these packages past the finish line. If not, it's not going to look good for him, or really anyone in the Democratic Party, especially come the midterm elections. So now we're back to working on a framework with Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, the White House, and Chuck Schumer. While progressive Democrats in the House try to force the two senators into raising their price tags, it won't work because, again, not only are they not in the same chambers, but they're also in different states. Joe Manchin nor Kyrsten Sinema are going to vote for the same policies that these other politicians are voting for in their blue districts. It's just not going to happen. So will President Biden and Chuck Schumer be able to work out an agreement with Manchin and Sinema that also is agreed to by progressive Democrats? Honestly, probably not, but let's wait and see. Here is White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki being grilled on the struggle currently going on with reconciliation.
Go ahead. I'll come back to your hearing session. Go ahead.
We finally learned today Senator Manchin's position on his top line number. Senator Schumer's been aware of it since late July, and Senator Manchin said that he told the president already this $1.5 trillion number. Why has the decision been made strategically to pursue Senator Manchin, Senator Sinema, and not try to, in the last couple of weeks, apply more pressure on progressives to take half a loaf and say, this is low-hanging fruit, it's a $1.2 trillion infrastructure plan, let's move on that? Why was that strategic decision made not to do that?
Both of these are huge priorities to the president. I'd also note that when Senator Manchin was asked, and he can obviously speak for himself, but just since I've read the whole transcript here, he also repeatedly referred back to a document that went back to July 28th. I'd remind you all that this is an active negotiation and discussion. And it is incumbent upon members to put out where they stand and where they are. And as we've seen over the past couple days, that's an ever-changing process. So before you make conclusions about what the end results will be, I would remind you to look at the last several days or even weeks about how these discussions have progressed.
Senator Manchin said today he believes his position is, it sounded to me like his position was firm, and he also said that if progressives feel that the Congress should spend $3.5 trillion, that they should convince voters to send more progressives to Washington. That sounded to me like he's saying that through the end of this Congress, he's not going to agree to $3.5 trillion.
We could certainly parse Senator Manchin's words, but I am certain he'll go answer questions again, and your colleagues should ask him more questions.
But why do you think that this is not, why do you think that Senator Manchin's position on this is not final?
Because this is an active negotiation, because he was pushed repeatedly during the gaggle that he did on Capitol Hill about where he stood. But again, I'm not here to speak for Senator Manchin. He is certainly can speak for himself and what his points of views are, and I certainly encourage you all to keep asking him questions about where he stands. Go ahead.
So Psaki certainly doesn't seem to think that negotiations are over, but she also says she's not there to speak for Senator Manchin. She also tells reporters that they should be the ones asking Joe Manchin the questions and not her. And really, it's been this way for weeks now. Since July, Senator Manchin has been extremely clear that he's not on board with $3.5 trillion more in spending until they first get inflation under control and also spending the rest of the money that hasn't yet been used. So we'll see how these negotiations go over the next month or so, but again, it's very possible that both the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the reconciliation package could end up failing. And that, while having complete control in Washington, would be a massive disappointment for Joe Biden and the rest of the Democratic Party. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. Again, if you would like to receive a couple free stocks from Webull, make sure to quickly claim them by clicking my link, which you will find in the description box below. To receive the first stock, you will need to fully open an account. Then to receive the second free stock, which will be valued up to $2,000, you'll need to make a qualifying deposit of at least $5. And even if you aren't all that interested in investing or continue to invest at this point in time, you can always sell the free stocks that you receive and transfer that money, however much they're worth, right back to your bank account. So free stocks or free money is completely up to you. So once again, I hope everyone has a great and safe rest of their Friday, and I'll see you in the next video.